Welcome to Solutions from the Yard, a candid discussion about life behind bars and its effect on society. We'll discuss reintegration or re-entry back into the community post-incarceration. Your host for this episode is Charles Hopkins.
Today we'll be talking about poverty and the correlation between poverty and prison. Joining me are my two cohorts, Dietrich Trent and Michael Dickerson Hill. Welcome, gentlemen.
How you doing?
All right, let's just jump right into it. According to a statistic, it takes $68,000 a year to live in the District of Columbia. And then when it broke down what that encompassed as far as what that $68,000 would pay for. We recognize that in the District of Columbia, the cost of living is very high. According to correctional experts, right, of political persuasions, they understand that releasing a person from prison without a job, without training, and without education is a formula for recidivism. Now, all of us have been released from prison. And coming out of prison, we all had been confronted with those things as far as the need for a job. If we had education, they got to use our education to try to get a job and or have some form of employment in order to get housing. Dietrich, when you got released, aside from the fact that you might have had some support, what did you see as the number one barrier in terms of you getting out and being able to find your way and setting up yourself to be able to become self-sufficient or at least take care of yourself and other family members?
Well, great question, first of all. But my number one barrier was being patient, right, with the process. And meaning by the patient, but the process, because when I first was released, I didn't go to no job training. I didn't go to none of this. I got a job by word of a mouth of a friend of mine. And through this process of me working, I knew that I didn't really, it wasn't a real career-driven job that was going to have any sustaining lastability, that was going to be fruitful at the end. So it wasn't no future in the job I was doing. And one of the things was finding someone that was going to give me an opportunity, right? And really giving me an opportunity. So I had to strip myself of everything that I knew and take myself to a job training program to get some type of backing on me, that he's saying that someone could speak for on my behalf, to say, yeah, give this guy a chance, develop some type of relationships. And this is the problem in this, when you coming home from, everybody's not going to be successful in that route. Everybody can't be patient, except because I took a stipend, which was for a whole year. I was taking a stipend, but
what's a stipend?
A stipend is a government. It's a government grant, right? They give organizations to hire. It's a government grant that they give organizations to hire individuals with stipulations, and you don't make so much money. You get at least about $600 to $800 every 2 weeks through these government stipends, and I was making that about $600 to $700 every 2 weeks, right? It wasn't enough. It wasn't a good thing I had support, but
okay, we're gonna come back to it too.
And good thing I had support, but I seen some of the brothers that I did know that came home that was facing the same opportunities I did, and went through the same route I went through. It wasn't successful for them because it wasn't built for you to be successful in these type of programs, accepting these stipends.
When you got out, did you have a a job ready, available for you? And what was your situation like as far as the things that you was confronted with once you got out?
When I got out, I didn't have no job waiting for me. I was on 50 days home confinement. And I was at the extreme level, so it wasn't no coming out. I only could come out maybe once a week, and sometimes I couldn't even come out then. But once I finished the 50 days home confinement, the main thing that I was doing was like trying to get my vital documentation. Because I knew that was going to be my foundation, getting my ID, my driver's license, getting my social security card, birth certificate, things of that nature. That was the first things that I did. And once I did that, I opened up a bank account, and then I wound up going back to school. And I went to school and got a stipend pay. And that was one of the things that kept me afloat, kept a little money in my pocket. And I had the little stipend pay.
All right, let's talk about poverty. And me and Deidre was talking about this earlier. Let's talk about poverty. I know when I was locked up, I looked around and I seen whole neighborhoods locked up. Everybody in the neighborhood was locked up. And most of the people that was there came from low-income housing, subsidized housing, and found themselves in that situation. Do you think it's a correlation, Mike, between poverty and imprisonment? If so, how?
Of course. I mean, some people, say it's, systematic, and, not to get into anyone's else's narrative, but from what I've seen in my lifetime, poverty and prison is definitely, they are connected because from when you know your history, keeping us uneducated was one of the main priorities. We got you got the Supreme Court, Brown versus
Topeka Board of Education.
Right. So if you can keep a person uneducated, you can keep them, ignorant, have a lack of knowledge. Then having a lack of knowledge, you can't get certain jobs. So when you looking at the statistics, it always says that white men always earn more than black men. And, 9 times out of 10, they went to college. So, I always tell people a college degree really is nothing but a validation. It don't mean that you're stupid. It don't mean that you don't know this or don't know that. It's just a validation to work in certain industries that can pay you more money. So the greater your validation, the greater your pay. So when you looking at it from that perspective, and having to pay to go to college and all these different things, when you have that form of lack of education and you have a system that was built and predicated on certain people going to college, certain people getting these degrees, certain people getting these particular type of jobs that pay a lot of money. So when you look at it like that, when we the way we came up, we was uneducated. And we only can afford certain type of housing. So that certain type of housing, low income housing, you put a bunch of us together, you put drugs and crime there, and now you have the prison system. So I look at it as more so systematic, whereas though it was something that was done, it's like an experiment, That's why we call them projects, because it was an experiment.
And did you spoke on that when you got out, and we spoke earlier about this, when you got out, you was able to navigate certain things, but other people wasn't fortunate. Speak on, from your own personal experience, witnessing the whole neighborhoods being locked up in an environment where you at, and why you think that was the case in general.
Okay, I'm gonna start with the first part of the question about me navigating and seeing people going through that wasn't experiencing success. And I want to touch on something that Mike just spoke about, because is very important. You know, poverty gave birth to projects in prison. At one point in time, your neighborhood was a prison because everything of slum was there. Everything of under-resourced, and that, you know, that was considered, you know, the project, the prison. You know, and so they said we can't. They escaping out of here. They started to branch out, so we need to put them somewhere that they can't go nowhere. So that's what, and all this was the birth of out of poverty, and meaning, if I'm being released from prison with, say, they give you $50 when you release.
That's what they gave me.
$50 after you did probably so many I ain't laughing. It's not funny. It's serious, and you get released with this, and this might be someone only income they have to their name is this $50.
That was me.
No yes, right, and so it's setting you up for recidivism, because I know you got to go back to your neighborhood where it's nothing but poverty yet. There's nothing there that's going to help you grow, right? It lacks of resources.
That's right.
Right. It's high in crime, according to you, to the statistics, right? So it's over police populated, you know. So it's a breeding path for you to get frustrated and to dive back into what you know, because we seen a lot, bro. You know, we see it a lot, man. This ain't working because I don't have training for this job, or this job ain't paying me enough money, man. I don't want to work that job. It ain't paying me enough money, because it comes a point that it's a gray area where certain men that come from poverty structures, you only reach certain level in life when it comes to economics, status. Because if we allow you to reach anything beyond that, you will gain independence, and then you will be able to control your own destiny. But if you always need me to provide for you to help you be successful, I always gonna give you peanuts, and that's what makes recidivism so great when you living in putting the brothers and sisters back into poverty situations and putting them back into no-win situations, right? And that's the thing about prison. In prison is like poverty. You know, living in prison, you know, you have the brothers that got food, the brothers that don't got food. We go through it. Brothers that got man, only food they got is going to the kitchen. They ain't hungry out to the kitchen. So, and it's a lot of brothers come from certain neighborhoods getting to that point about we see it. But you see over 20 individuals from one certain neighborhoods, all of them doing many calendars of years. This is not by this is not by all of them got caught. This is by coincidence. This is a setup and structure for to have these many people from certain neighborhoods that's in these poverty situations, so you can help build the economy.
And you know what? And I'm looking at what you said earlier about the how much money we make, and I know when I got out, I had got my SSI, right? So I was getting $530. Okay, I was getting $180 in food stamps. And I'm living in a transition house. All right. If I don't have money to spend, I don't have no money. It's COVID, but even if it wasn't COVID, wasn't there, I don't have no money to spend on no social activity, right? And mind you, I did all this time. I did 48 years in prison. So now my whole goal is to get a place. And Mike, I want you to pick up on this. My whole goal is to get a place to stay. How do I get a place to stay when in the District of Columbia, according to a report, in the District of Columbia, an efficiency is 2,100. An efficiency in certain parts of the District of Columbia is 2,100. But say the efficiency is 1,800 a month. Don't include electricity or none of the utilities. How do I get an efficiency when I'm only getting $530 overall? That's it. That's the amount of money. The total amount of money I'm getting is $530. how do I get an efficiency with 530? And mind you, according to the Social Security Administration, and I'm a victim of it at this time. I'm saying a victim because that's exactly what I am. You can't save over a certain amount of money. If you save over a certain amount of money, they're gonna take your Social Security and make you pay it back. And then to this point, I'm paying it back. So I come out of an impoverished environment. How do I get the ability to become self-sufficient? And what do that do for me psychologically when I don't have that ability to become self-sufficient? I'm in this environment, Mike.
Well, first I want to ask you, is you talk about coming just from poverty or coming from prison?
I'm talking about coming from both.
Both. I mean, man, it might sound funny, but you gonna wind up returning to the streets, or you gonna wind up, you better get yourself a sugar mama or something. That's the only way you, because it's impossible. You know, the cost of living in Washington D.C. is extremely high. You know, when I was before I got incarcerated, I got incarcerated in 1996. You know, when rent was like $800, anything went from $800 to $1,000. That was like, wow,
yes, right.
That was a lot of money. You know, so when I came home, and you know, I started seeing rent $1,600, $1,700. You know, it was double what I consider, or what was considered high amongst, you know, just the regular population,
Yeah,
period.
that's right.
You know what I'm saying? You had to be, you know, up there just to pay that type of rent. So now for them to raise the, you know, raise rent that high, it's almost virtually impossible, especially if you a returning citizen with no form of education.
That's right.
And no form of certification. Because, you know, nowadays, you know, you just can't walk up on the job and just put in a resume and an application and just get the job. You know, that's slowly converted and changed over. Now everything you got to be certified. Every single thing you got to be certified in. So, yeah, so everything you got to be certified in. And that's the way it is. And, you know, nowadays, that's how it is, you know, in Washington, D.C. If you're not certified in something or have some form of certification, you're not going to be able to make good money, you know. And it's like I said, it's, you know, to me, that's a part of the gentrification, you know, because if we can create a budget system where as though if you can't, you know what I'm saying, ball with the game and the ballers, then you just gonna sit on the sideline.
That's right.
So I mean, you know, to me that's systematic as well, you know, and that's one of the things that I've seen in the changes in Washington D.C. for me doing 24 years, how they just created a system where as though if you not certified and making a certain amount of money, you can't live here.
Right. And Dietrich, and you in the community all the time. You know, you work with DC Kitchen, so you in a space where you dealing with food deserts, and you always providing services for people. But how do, you know, when we look at like Greenleaf and Potomac Garden or Clay Terrace, we look at these dwellings that, you know, in Potomac Garden, they had the Attorney General had come in and say like the living conditions were so dilapidated that the housing administration, they was charging the housing administration. How do people survive in this impoverished way? And then you come out and you return a citizen, and that's where your mother live at. She been living there. You been locked up 24 years. She been living there all the 24 years, and that's your residency. How do we survive that impoverished environment and be able to not go back to prison, or is that a formula for going back to prison?
Great question, and I got to go back to deeper, to slavery. Meaning when they survived, you know, when you had to overcome a lot of things, and living in poverty, and the beauty thing about us living in poverty, we make it look like it ain't. And even though that's a mental thing, but dealing with the circumstance and the environment, and and a lot of things are systematically structured for the things to be the way they are, right? And a lot of these, do you recall in the late 80s and the early 90s when it became, they changed the word, they made the word crew criminalized. They criminalized the name, the word crew, because that's when they started locking up all these. They started saying, "Oh, these such and such a crew. These are individuals that we all grew up around the same poverty. We just all live around the same neighborhood, and we all friends. We grew up. We are a community. What nothing such a thing as a crew, and it's as these natures how they try to put it. But the thing about it, how these brothers, we had to survive in this poverty, and then to come back from doing time, to come back to such traumatized, if you know what I'm saying, because coming back to where you grew up is such trauma, especially if it was bad for you, especially, you know what I'm saying, but it just a lot of things that you knew, grew up around and you experienced and seen, it's trauma, right? Sometimes I get around my neighbor, I be like, man, I've relived, I seen something that, you know, that remind me of a lot of things of growing up. But the thing how it is about with this, I want to touch on something with what you were speaking on about was me, I experienced coming home, and how I knew if I didn't have that fortitude to keep pushing forward, right? Because I went to every organization, and I mean the government, that's saying that I went to try to get food stamps. You know what? I was told, I work for OSSI. You don't deserve food stamps. I said, huh? This is exactly what they told me. They told me this. I said, but they didn't know nothing about a stipend. I'm working for Project Power got me to go to, you know, I got the OSSI. They didn't know that. All they seen that, oh, you work for the Office of State Superintendent of Education. There's no way you supposed to be needing food stamps. That's what I never got any public benefits since I've been home. And I wanted to speak on that about that group of individuals that go undocumented when it comes to earning income, because they wasn't legal, you know, juveniles, they wasn't legal for income. You know, they wasn't in the workforce. So that was one of the burdens I had to come home to, because I never had established myself out here as an adult. So when I came home, I didn't have no credit history, no work history. That was one of the main things. You ain't got no credit history, you ain't got no work history. Where you been at? Like I was an alien. Who are you? I said, well, I've been in prison. Right? Well, we can't. This is a barrier. You know, and this is something that needs to be addressed. You know, as far as when it comes to people coming back and you putting them in, it should be some type of workforce development that's going on. They're putting people into out there in California. We want to do the Valley,
Silicon Valley.
Yeah, Silicon Valley. Why? It's a lot of industries that we got a lot of brothers that could take advantage of. But the thing about it, why we can't take advantage of it, because it's system today. The way they teach us in school, they took all the trades out. Every trade is gone. If a man have a trade with his hands, he always got a job. He always know how to make an income. But if I take him out of the schools, I'm taking something away from you all that you would never be able to utilize unless you pay to do it. It used to be free. Every man need to know a trade. You need to learn how to agriculture. You need to learn how to carpentry. You need to learn how to fix a car. It was many things that they taught in school, plumbing, everything. All these stuff is our lifetime trades that they took them away. So our kids are suffering with no money, no skills, no job skills, no education. So they ain't doing nothing but sitting in poverty, waiting for their next day to go through the RD to go to prison.
All right, so as we wrap this up, you just gave one solution as far as workforce development, and the necessity for implementing, putting trades and things back in, which is a good point, working with training. Mike, what would you, in terms of like coming out of prison and revisiting that poverty and that trauma, what would you offer if you had to offer a solution to help curb that or stem that tide?
Just to paraphrase something that comes from the Bible, it says, our people perish from the lack of knowledge. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that we really have to get back into, similar to what Dietrich was saying, get back into stop charging for education and start giving education, because education is supposed to be free. That's education shouldn't be paid for. Yeah. So therefore we have to really get back into giving that type of education to the people that can't pay to go to college. Mm-hmm. And that'll create a better workforce amongst us as a people, because now you can't say, well, the reason why you couldn't get this job or that job because you don't have a college degree. You were giving me a chance. Give me a chance. Mm-hmm. Give me a chance to be able to get a certification. Mm-hmm. Once you give me that chance, then then we can start changing the narrative. And that's my thing is we have to be better educated, because we are living in the system now in a day and era that you have to be educated. You have to have certain degrees and certain set of skills. So therefore, my thing is, start putting vocational training back into metropolitan schools. That's one of the things that will help us out a lot.
And remember, we was at the table event where they was talking about that putting vocation back in the schools, right?
Exactly.
I just want to, because Brother Dickinson just made me think about something. And this is true, Bill, and I want people, the audience, and everyone to know this. There haven't been no new universities built. And I don't know how many years ago. There's no more education institutions are being built. But there are prison institutions being built every day. Mm-hmm. So that shit tells you we don't care about your education or none of that. We only care about you feeding this pipeline. Mm. Mm-hmm. And that's through and all that set up through poverty, bro.
And there you have it. We recognize that education is key, because most people that's impoverished, they have a tendency to accept their plight as this is the only way out. But we know that you can reverse that process by, one, educating them to understand you have a right. You have an inalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's according to the Constitution. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're advocating. We're advocating that education. And thank you for joining us from Solutions from the Yard.
You've been listening to Solutions from the Yard. This podcast is presented by Voices for a Second Chance, a comprehensive reentry program that provides culturally appropriate, trauma-informed, gender-specific, and peer-based services. For more information, go to info@vscdc.org or visit our website at www.vscdc.org.